Oh man, UFC 306 was something else. So, overall, the card was actually pretty entertaining. I know there's a handful of fights that a lot of fans of UFC weren't really sure of. They don't know too much about the fighters, but we had a ton of fights with a ton of brawls and exchanges that were super entertaining. So many close knockouts, especially Brian Ortega versus Diego Lopez. Insane fight. But I will say the co-main event and the main event were actually the least entertaining of the entire event. The Sphere was cool to see. It held a lot of movie production with history pertaining to the Mexican culture. The ring girl outfits were actually pretty cool. Overall, there was a ton of effort put into it, but I will say, was it worth the $20 million Dana White spent? I'm really not sure. But regardless, I'm here to talk about the main event, Sean O'Malley versus Merab. We knew it could go one of two ways. O'Malley either snipes Merab early on, or Merab grinds out a decision. Now, personally, I was of the hope that O'Malley was going to snipe Merab. I really thought Merab makes a lot of minor mistakes and keeps his chin up, especially when he's pushing forward. And I was really banking on Merab making that mistake early on. But he came in prepared. He came in with a ton of movement, cutting O'Malley off and capitalizing on O'Malley's mistakes. But overall, this had to have been one of the weirdest fights I think I've seen in the UFC in general. When we talk about O'Malley, he's crisp, he's clean, he's sharp, he's so fast. We saw absolutely none of that from the beginning. So the fight starts, and immediately Tim Welch, Sean O'Malley's coach, starts chirping at Merab. Merab starts chirping back. Before you know it, Herb Dean stops the fight to stop Merab from talking back to O'Malley's coach, Tim Welch. And then Herb Dean proceeds to tell off Tim Welch. We're like 15, 20 seconds into this fight, if I'm not mistaken. And from that moment on, Sean O'Malley looked so flat, so stale, so slow. He was so unamused in this fight. I don't know how else to explain it. It's like the moment Herb Dean stopped the fight in the first 10 to 15 seconds, O'Malley just completely lost everything. He was just throwing this straight to the body on Merab. The rest of everything he threw, which was barely anything at all, wasn't really connecting. It was super slow. It was obvious that O'Malley really didn't have much of a game plan other than a lucky KO, and he was so hesitant knowing Merab's ground game. I will say this, there was a ton of speculation that Herb Dean was biased with O'Malley against Merab, given towards the end of the fight, Merab was a little hurt, or when he was dominating on the ground, Herb Dean's telling him to work. But I'm not really seeing that. Herb Dean called out Tim Welch. He called out Sean O'Malley grabbing Merab's glove, and Merab landed an illegal knee, and Herb Dean let everything slide. So I feel like Herb Dean was fair in the exchanges, or at least as best as he could be. But this fight was just so odd. We've seen O'Malley, who is so incredibly confident, so crisp, so clean. He comes into a fight and he dominates, right? There was no type of spirit in this fight. He looked nervous on the walkout. He came in. He was slow. He barely threw anything at all. And he just got Merab'd for 5 rounds. It was incredibly interesting, but what's more interesting is wanting to see how O'Malley is going to react to it after the fact, right? O'Malley didn't do a post-fight interview. He walked off, which, quite frankly, every fighter that took the L during this card didn't do any form of a post-fight interview. So I don't necessarily know if that was just part of, the stage for this event, or if they willingly chose to not do those interviews. But O'Malley didn't show up to the post-fight press conference either. He's receiving a ton of hate for it, but at the end of the day, I mean, what can he really say? He got outclassed for 5 rounds, which hurts me to say. I'm a fan of O'Malley. I'm a fan of his striking. I think he's a super entertaining fighter. But he lacked the confidence, and it clearly showed. And one thing I'm really curious about is during this fight in between rounds, Tim Welch as a coach, he has a phenomenal relationship with O'Malley. He knows what to say and what not to say. But I'll say this, in between rounds, his coaching advice was interesting. He gave a bit of advice here and there, but going into the 5th round, he specifically said something along the lines of 5 minutes left and this is over. You know, just go survive 5 minutes and we can get out of here. It wasn't motivating. It wasn't pushing O'Malley to get a crazy finish. He did say, you know, throw a power shot and follow up with a knee right up the middle, which was good advice given the circumstances, but it seemed like O'Malley and Tim were both on the same page of let's just survive this fight and get the hell out of here. It was really odd to me. And given O'Malley's walkout, given the way he performed during the fight, which was just absolutely nothing like how O'Malley normally performs, and given Tim Welch's coaching advice in between rounds, I feel like something was up with O'Malley. I don't know if it's a lingering injury or something was going on, but this was not his fight. He went into this with no motivation, just nothing at all. He went into this fight just miserable. It was so odd. You know, it truly reminded me of the Amanda Nunes versus Juliana Pena fight, where the moment Pena got the submission in, Nunes immediately tapped. She just didn't really have it in her that night. It just wasn't her night, and I feel like that was the same with O'Malley. He went into this daunting arena going against a terrifying opponent that he knew he wasn't going to be able to beat on the ground. He only had one game plan. It was to keep it standing and knock him out, and that failed very quickly, and he was in for just a rude awakening for the rest of the fight. It was sad to see, in my opinion, truly. His confidence, everything, it was all gone. He lost everything in that fight. Now, with that being said, will O'Malley ever be champ again, and how is he handling this L? Well, he dropped a tweet saying he overpromised and underdelivered and apologized, and then he posted a pretty funny video, some takedown defense. So, at least he approached the L with honesty, accountability, and he made a joke out of it. It wasn't like a career-ending post where he's done overall, which I like to see. That made me happy. But will he ever be champ again? I mean, the way I see this is I see Merab going against Umar, and I see O'Malley going against Sandhagen, and the winner of that fight will fight for the belt. And I think that that is O'Malley's kind of last chance to get back to the championship. But at the same time, Umar and Merab are both just deadly opponents for O'Malley. I think O'Malley really is too tall for the weight class, and it's incredibly hard to stuff takedowns against such a small little muscle hamster like Merab. I think it's evident at this point. We've seen that O'Malley's a lot more one-dimensional than we had hoped for. He made it pretty clear, hyping up this fight, that he has some ground game experience he's been hiding and waiting to show. And quite frankly, percentage-wise, he actually survived the takedowns better than Henry Cejudo against Merab, which is interesting. But the way I see this happening is if he goes against Sandhagen, wins, and goes against Umar or Merab and loses again, I really think he's going to try and move up a weight class, which I don't really know if that's beneficial for him, if I'm being completely honest. I would see him pursuing the boxing fight with Gervonta Davis. I think O'Malley's made enough money. He's been champion. And while he wants to cement that legacy as, you know, the best UFC fighter and live up to the McGregor hype, it's not going to happen. And he just received the same type of McGregor downfall. He was on top of the world, incredibly confident. And before you know it, he gets just wrestle fucked and completely outclassed. And he has to be questioning his ability and where he stands in the UFC. Nonetheless, I just am unhappy because I think O'Malley's a much more entertaining fighter than Merab. I can appreciate ground game and skill, but I like seeing some crisp, clean knockouts versus just, you know, grinding somebody out for 5 rounds. Nonetheless, I would love to see O'Malley versus Sandhagen. I think that will be a banger of a fight regardless. And from there, who really knows? I mean, I think it's possible for O'Malley to be champ again if he regains that confidence. And so far, his reactions to the fight have been good enough. Good enough to show that he's willing to keep going and improve, which is all I could really ask for. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Are you excited for Merab to be champ? How did you feel about that fight? How did you think O'Malley looked? I thought he looked awful. And it hurts me to say that, but I thought he truly looked awful. Let me know in the comments below. Thank you guys for watching. Take care. Bye.